Good afternoon and hi everyone. Mr. Williams, thank you too for inviting me. I'm, well, as he said, Dr. Ismay Taylor, a university professor and dean, retired. And I'm here partly in time of, partly for my family's foundation, the Keynes's Family Foundation. I'll make a presentation and I'm happy to be here. Greetings and much respect to those of you who are listening by means of technology, whether you are at home or abroad. I consider it a privilege to greet you here at this daily briefing. You will permit me, I will use these few notes not to encourage the expansion of my remarks, but as an anchor to keep me nailed down to the short space of time. Yes, Mr. Samuels, who called me up to this, Mr. Samuel said that I've watched the daily briefings, which is true, and I have gained much respect for the ability and good sense you and your team, your entire NEOC team, have brought to your work. My thanks. Allow me to, however, shout out appreciation to the medical and health component. Dr. Laws, Dr. Wilkerson, Junior Minister of Health Wendy Phipps, with the others from the Health Ministry. To you all, I extend kudos for your consistent dedication and your professionalism in keeping our hope, that is the public, keep us in the public, alive as you report and educate us with timely information that you garner as you maneuver through the uncharted waters of this epidemic malady of a pandemic magnitude, the coronavirus. Dr. Laws, I recognize fully the great service you are giving to the nation. You are blessed with an irrepressible spirit and dynamic energy, transmitting your powers to others. May you continue to enjoy splendid health. Since I'm here to answer a call to the national response, I would like to first render a somewhat freestyle ideology of my comprehension of giving. Well, giving is a component of our DNA. All of us have this in our DNA. I call it the 3 T's of happiness. It's your time, your talent, and your treasure. Interestingly, this component of our DNA has the potential to do good or evil. For somewhere in our brain cells, there's a functionary which acts as a thermostat or thermometer. It will measure and dispense the happiness triggered by that giving component, whether it be the use of your time, your talent, or your treasure, whether it be individually or collectively. This phenomenon will affect the giver as well as affect the recipient timelessly. I'll tell you quickly of one of my own experiences of how this effect and affect infuses. My father, Moses Keynes, a 20th century man, born March of 1900, deep Beirut, died at the age of 78 years. He lived through 2 world wars and 2 significant socio-economic upheavals here in St. Kitts, namely the Buckley's riots and the Great Strike. That giving component came to me through my family, but very early, nothing to understand at that age. Father, I understood, as I understood it, was a carpenter, and he had a little food shop selling stuff. People from the village would patronize, obtain some food on their card, then remain to socialize, laughing, joking, and planning. My father had the biggest laughter. I thought he could rock the tins and the tin stuff off the shelves. I must have been about 3 years old when I realized that father had a talent which he loved and which was sought after. He was the village expert that you engage when you had to cut a house in 2 parts. For those of you who have forgotten, or those of you who didn't know this, in those days, a person could leave his will in a house for 2 persons. The way they resolved that was to engage a person like Mr. Keynes to expertly cut that house down the middle from the roof to the floor. Then each person would move away her half on a truck or on a composite of pushing and rolling barrels. Sometimes half could go to Parsons Ground and the other St. Paul's, which was where the new owners lived. The land was not owned by either of these. I would have heard then that there was no charge from Mr. Keynes for the cutting. Father would say, "Lord, Lord, the person can't afford it. Leave it so." But my mother, Mrs. Keynes, would pass the day making a big pot of food for the helpers to gather, to eat, drink, and show off their happy laugh when that was all done. The crisis of the World War II and the economic impact ruined the little shop business of my father. The customers had no jobs, no money to pay the debts that they accumulated for the accredited food, and obviously the owner had no money to buy a restock. So Moses Keynes then moved with his wife and 5 children from Dieppe Bay to Bastille. After moving around some time in Bastille, he settled in Central Street, McKnight. That's where I grew up. Here in McKnight, the parents added 3 more siblings. Mother Keynes was an economist before we had learned or even knew words or understood words such as economic systems and logarithms, because she thrived on a philosophy of giving. Hers was give, share, put something back. The Lord will bless you, and it will bless your children. Her mantra was, cast your bread on the water, and you will find it many days after. For us children, that would have been we couldn't understand. Mother always knew someone in the Cardin home to send a dinner to. And one of us children would have to take that dinner there even before we could get to eat our own dinner. We couldn't understand this. And you'll imagine this would have been a moment for a long face or even a thought of a stoops. We would be told, run, go, and come back quickly. You're casting your bread on the water. Or convincingly imposing her belief, she would surmise, I'm casting my bread on water so that you will find it later. Oh. Okay, fast forward. We moved to Greenlands, one of the first families there. Then we grew up, got jobs, then scattered, settling down, making our own families, and settling, whether it be at home or abroad. And then soon everything began to come together. We began to understand the meaning of the figurative cast your bread on the water. The giving, give, share. And we understood the happiness in return. We could really see clearly now, because then the blessings were coming in. Now, 20 years ago, retirements began to set in for the children of Moses and Mary Keynes. With much reflection and reflecting, we concluded that Moses and Mary's ideology of giving was time-tested and rightfully had to be honored. And the stories that the stories had to be passed on to the next generation. Thus, in June of 2007, the founding of the Keynes Family Foundation was realized, and this was to their honor. The principal founders, principal donors were Mr. Richard Keynes, accomplished and recognizable businessman, Dr. Ismay Taylor, educator, that's me, Dr. Stanley Everton Keynes, a diplomat of the American Board of Internal Medicine with a specialization in cardiology, and Troy Taylor, vice president with worldwide responsibility for the laboratory automation system product with Clinical Diagnostics, and that is a Johnson & Johnson company. The Keynes Family Foundation, with their goals and aims, and I'll state that as I quote, I'll state the goals and aims of the family was as follows. The Keynes Family Foundation was organized to assist in the improvement and enhancement of education initiatives, strengthen economic development, and promote healthy families in St. Kitts and Nevis. The goal of the foundation is to facilitate training and expert resources in the areas of management, leadership development, business development, health-related issues to educators, business entrepreneurs, and health and medical practitioners. The foundation has been accomplishing and continues to accomplish much of its goals. The foundation is no stranger to the Ministry of Education, and its input and involvements are documented. Dr. Stanley Keynes, Everton, we all know him, was the health connection, the health designee from the foundation to the ministry. Sadly, we lost him 5 years ago, all too soon, at the age of 61. This is the cardiologist who succumbed to cardiac complications. Today, Dr. Keynes' spirit hovers around us, and I have come to give my support to the fight against this virus. Mr. Samuels, are you here? Would you come, please? My head tells me that your committee is stressed with the ever-changing, fluid nature of this crisis. Things happen in real time, which means that there are real-time occurrences and events for which there is no inclusion in your budget. Thus, as the chairperson of the Keynes Family Foundation, my heart tells me that on our behalf, the foundation is pleased to present to your committee this initial check of $10,000. $10,000. I have a little more to say. For information, thank you, Mr. Samuels, and good use. You know where to use this. For information, I have an email which just sharing with you the work of our ambassador in Washington, Dr. Thelma Brown. She reached out to some Kittians in the diaspora on behalf of our nationals who are students in the USA, in universities, and who have called on the embassy for help. I see that the response to her communique garnered, well, I have 3 persons here I have knowledge who took the helm of this thing, one being Ms. Jean Herbert Walters on behalf of Ruth Liebert Foundation. And then there was Larry Quinland, another Kittitian. And then Troy Taylor from the Keynes Family Foundation, who is my son and lives abroad. And they immediately reached out to our students wherever they are in the US. And my information is that they reached out to over 80 students. And I also heard that they have transferred among themselves these Kittitians abroad, these 3 names I mentioned, that they have already sent over $8,000 of money transfer to help our students who some are displaced because of this virus. So I'm glad to hear that. I see that our nationals are stepping up. I also must mention that I see individuals locally who are showing up and doing a part. And there was a Mr. Brown last week who I saw. And Mr. Brown, you broke my heart. You stirred me, and maybe that's why I'm here. It was time to show up, because there's room for more of us to show up. There's more that we can do. Some islands are having telethons, and there are lots of things that we could do. I'm entreating now, I would like to entreat others who may still be contemplating. Stop contemplating, stop contemplating, get on board. We each have to do our part, because we are all of us together. All of us are in this together. We have to fight for our lives. And guess what? The life you save might be your own. I'm entreating others who may still be contemplating to step up and show up. Once in a great while, a cause so tragic in intensity and so overwhelming in importance is brought to our attention that it transcends any consideration of creed, race, or political affiliations. COVID-19, an invisible, deadly virus, a pandemic of epic proportion, it surrounds us. This is a cause that merits the support of all of us. We are grieved, yes, and we are grieving. But hello, grief is not the greatest loss in life. The greatest loss in life is what dies inside you while we live. We cannot buy happiness. We can't go to the nearest supermarket and order a pound of happiness like you would order a pound of cheese or a pound of butter. Happiness comes from within. You can secure a measure of happiness by your own acts. You can find that feeling of contentment when you respond to a struggle, any struggle that you find yourself faced with. Again, I think this opportunity, and I take this opportunity to appeal to all my fans. We all have a personal responsibility to ensure the fertility and fruitful life of future generations. All you fans of Teacher Ismay out there, whether you're at home or abroad, get on board, show up, do your part, whether it be big or small. Remember the 3 T's? Time, talent, treasure. Bring what you have, how much you can. Let's save our nation for the next generation, please. And may life treat you as kindly as you regard it. Kindness and love are the two highest expressions of God. Thank you, and may God bless us all.